6 months ago, we didn't know if we were ever going to have a ridden career again. And now we are talking about grassroots eventing. Hi, I'm Maddie. This is Lorcán, my 5-year-old Irish draft, and we are Life on the Wrong Stride. You might have seen us on Instagram doing fun things like this. And we are here to talk about Lorcán's Ulcer journey, as a lot of you guys have asked what's been going on behind the scenes, why have we not been getting out cross country so much, and generally just wanting to know a little bit more about ulcers. So I thought, what a better time than to start YouTube. So here we are. Back before, here's Felicity, this is the yard cat, she's going to join us. Are you joining us to talk about Lorcán's ulcers? Come on, we'll all sit down together. So back at Christmas time, we found out that Lorcán had grade 4 bleeding squamous ulcers, and it really shook our world, and we were really shocked by the diagnosis. I really didn't expect it, and here comes Lorcán. Here's everybody's in the video now. So up until then, I think the biggest question I always get asked, hello, yes, are we having a sniff? Be nice on her, be nice, good boy. That's Lorcán. So I think the biggest question we get asked is, well, how did you know Lorcán had ulcers? And the honest answer is, I didn't. It really blindsided me and took me for a ringer. We didn't expect it. So he didn't have any of the usual symptoms that you would expect. He maintained his weight, his coat was in amazing condition, it was so shiny, his dapples were gleaming, he was perky, he was jumping, he was doing flat work, he was supple from the ground. Everything screamed normal. He's a good doer, he loves his food. Off screen, what you can't see is he's kicking his bucket about because he thinks there's more breakfast in there. And yeah, there was nothing of the usual offenders that people would say that would help us have identified the ulcers earlier. Now, that being said, there were signs that now that we know what they are, we can look out for them again. And that's why we're here, just to kind of tell you that story. So just in case this resonates with you or something you maybe want to look out for in your horses, then you know everything doesn't fall under the usual bucket of weight loss, poor appetite and poor performance, that there are other key indicators there. So for us, looking back, the symptoms would have been difficulty mounting, which initially when we bought him, we knew from the seller they had disclosed that he can be a little bit awkward to mount. And we thought, he's just turned 5, maybe it was just a bad breaking experience, it's maybe just more groundwork is needed. He is still young, he's fresh, he's not really been ridden, and we just chalked it up to young age. We didn't think at this stage that this was anything to be concerned about. And as we did groundwork, it got better. So again, we thought it was just a really bad breaking experience and we just needed extra time with him. So again, we put that to the back of our minds and didn't really think that this was the start of something bubbling underneath. And after that, there was nothing. No signs. Literally no signs. We wouldn't have known. And all we did was kept going on, and we did everything right. He's always had 24 access at that point to haylage, not hay, but he had 24/7 access to forage. He had daily turnout as this was coming into the winter time. So he was out 3 or 4 hours every day to the best of our ability, given that last year was a horrific winter with the weather. He had mud fever, so we were trying to manage that alongside just general welfare needs of having turnout. So we were doing everything right. And then came Christmas, and over the Christmas break on a Sunday morning, he just started to feel a little bit dull. We came into the stable, we mucked him out, I was grooming him, we were supposed to go for a ride, and I just kind of went, he looks a bit dull, but I can't explain it. And as I started to groom him, he started to lift the back leg up and swish the tail, and I went, oh, this is new, what's wrong with you? And my mum and my partner were there, so we both kind of went, what is this? Why are you doing this? And we chalked it up to, is it maybe sore muscles? Is he just getting frustrated from being inside? Because we'd worked him quite hard that week. He had had a new saddle fitted. We had been on the gallops, and it being winter, he was very, very fresh and had taken off up the gallops at full speed. So I chalked it up to maybe muscle soreness, but something I kept in the back of my head is something isn't right here. So then we chose not to ride that day, and we let him do his thing, got him his turnout, brought him back in, and he still seemed a little bit dull when we brought him back in. And at this stage I'd noticed he hadn't peed all day. And again, I started to put things together and went, okay, he's not going to the toilet. Like, he had no drop-ins in his stable. It's now been 6 hours from we last were up. He's not any brighter, and he's now not peeing. So I'm worried this is early stages of colic. We phoned the emergency vet Sunday night. They agreed he would be monitored overnight and we could bring him in on the Monday morning, which is what we did. Brought him in Monday morning, and it was confirmed that he was colicking. So we were able to get that under control. He then stayed in Monday night on his IV, getting his fluids, under 24/7 vet supervision. And Tuesday we had agreed with the vet, I think we need to scope because something's not right, that he's so sensitive on his flank and belly area. And now, along with the colic, we just knew something wasn't right. So he went down for the scope on the Tuesday morning, and the vet phoned and said he has grade 4 squamous ulcers on the margo plicatus, and they're bleeding quite badly, and you're really lucky his stomach hasn't perforated or exploded. And I just remember crying my eyes out on the phone to the vet, almost going, are you sure you've got the right number? Is this Lorcán? Because he was riding perfectly well. He was eating. He wasn't girthy up until that last day, like the last 24 hours when he was colicking. There was no signs. So I thought it was a joke, or they got the wrong person. And once the reality set in, and I seen the images, which I'm not going to share on YouTube, I'm not going to share on Instagram. I don't like looking at them. I don't want this to be a part of our identity going forwards. So this is our story, but we're not going to share those images for you of the scope. But they were horrific. The first scope that we had back in the early January, it looked like a mountain range of craters in his stomach, and there was that much blood. You couldn't even really see the stomach, so I'm surprised the vets even knew they were in his tummy to begin with. It was horrific. So that is how we got our diagnosis, from very, very little. And I think it goes to show, especially as we've now navigated a journey in my 30 years of horses, I've actually never had a horse with ulcers. So it's relatively new for us, and it definitely put into perspective that it's not always the big signs that will show you what you need to worry and look out for. So that's why I think it's important to start raising awareness now, to other horse owners, to go, hey, it's not always when they're bright and perky, when they're not bright and perky and when they're not eating and they've lost condition, that's when you look for ulcers. Sometimes it's the micro signs that only you will know as your horse as to whether something's right or wrong. And for us, we just knew something wasn't right the moment that he colicked. But now that we know what his telltale signs are, if he starts getting bad when he's mounting, and if he's a little bit tense when we're first on him, we know that something isn't right. So at least now going forwards, we know what signs to look out for, and it might be something that resonates with you guys, and you might have a really similar story to us, and I would love to hear it and hear your experiences. So now comes the treatment, which is the most financially heartbreaking part of all of this. We have spent close to £15,000, we're in Northern Ireland, on peptazole, sucralfate, and multiple scopes, and further tests to rule out any pain-related causes. So as soon as we knew he had grade 4 ulcers, he's only 5, we discussed with the vet, well, how could this have happened? And this is when a lot of the management discussions came up about hay, not haylage, about how we're approaching work, how we're approaching turnout, which we knew we were doing anyway. But I will come back onto this about management, as I think that comes after treatment. So for our treatment, we had daily peptazole, 1 full syringe every day for 4 months. We rescoped at the month point every month, so we had 4 scopes total, and every scope proved a little bit better, which was the positive. So we had peptazole every day, 1 syringe, 2 scoops of sucralfate in the morning and evening, and a change of hard feed and grains. So we are now on the bluegrass relief for his grains, which is low starch, low sugar. So it's everything that's ulcer friendly for his little tummy. And we also have the Denji's alfalfa A, molasses free. We didn't opt for the peppermint version of it simply because we felt his stomach was still too sensitive for any further additives, supplements or anything extra other than the alfalfa itself. And so far, so good. We have obviously seen improvements because, spoilers, he's now ulcer free. But we've just had to change his food. So we now have meadowgrass hay, the Denji's alfalfa A, and the bluegrass relief. On top of this, the only other supplement that we have decided to add in as part of his treatment and ongoing rehab and management is the Protextin Acides, which has your pro, pre and postbiotics, as well as calcium carbonate to help alleviate any excess acid in the stomach. So during our treatment, we had tried to investigate pain. As part of this, we had x-rayed his pull, his neck, his back, stifles, SI joint, hocks, feet, you name it, we've x-rayed it, ultrasounded it, and nothing came up. We've had the saddle fitters out, we've had the teeth done, teeth checked, chiropractor, physio, and we even went as far as getting Reiki done and bringing in a homeopathy lady to create a tincture for him with natural supplements to support both his organs and his digestive tract. So as part of this, the tincture has direct from source, like a liquid, so it's not powdered, it's not dried, it's not loads of additives in anything, it's direct from source. So we have marshmallow root, aloe vera, and slippery elm. There is other things in there, I don't know what they are, but the homeopathy lady that we have is fantastic. And she is actually agricultural, so she specialises in cows and sheep and pigs. And it was through the Reiki lady who has said, hey, have you thought about going down the homeopathy route? And originally I kind of went, I don't know, will it work with medication? Is this something that we can introduce now? And after a conversation with both the homeopathist herself and the vet, we agreed it would do no harm to try. We were getting monthly scopes anyway, so at least we knew either way we could keep an eye on it. And what sold me was if farmers are willing to separate with their hard-earned money, which is hard enough to get out of them on a good day, if they're willingly paying for these tinctures for their cows and their sheep and their pigs and everything else, then I think it's a good thing we can try with Lorcán. This works. And I remember my first phone call with the homeopathist, and she had said, did you know homeopathy is miraculous? And I kind of went, all right, yeah, and never really thought anything of it. But now, in conjunction with the medicinal treatment with the vets that we have, I fully agree that the entire treatment plan was miraculous. So after our first scope in January, we then had a further rescope 3.5 weeks after that, just to see how his body was reacting to the peptazole, how it was reacting to the sucralfate, how it was reacting to the reduced work, and the change of diet. So the vet had said, look, you had bleeding grade 4 squamous ulcers. Don't be surprised they're still grade 4, just not bleeding, and don't be surprised if they're grade 3. And we kind of went in expecting the worst to this second scope, and we got probably the best news ever, that his body was responding, literally the word they used was miraculously, to the holistic and medicinal treatment options, so the whole treatment as a whole. And and he had grade 2 ulcers. So in 3 weeks, we went from grade 4 to grade 2, which is insane, absolutely insane. And we agreed to stick with this treatment option and this treatment route, and we had rescoped a further 3 weeks after this. At this point, we had slowly reintroduced a little bit of work, so a lot of this was your in-hand ground pulls, long, low, short hacks, so very easy, just getting him to stretch really, getting a rider on top of him again, just to see if his body, hello, you back up, was going to respond to the extra bit of work with the treatment. Unfortunately, in this period of time, this was when the rain was absolutely horrific. Our fields were quite literally underwater. We couldn't even see our fence posts anymore, so turnout was literally, there was no option to turn them out. It was, our fields were gone, and any turnout option that we had was also gone. He had picked up a really bad bit of mud fever. The vets had come in, checked it out, and had suggested bute to help with the swelling. Now, I know what you're saying. I can hear you all screaming down the phone, why did you agree to give bute? And I didn't. I had actually said to the vets twice, I'm really not happy giving bute here. His stomach is still quite sensitive. He's still recovering from ulcers. We're awaiting another scope. I just really don't think this is a good idea. Is there any natural or less invasive methods we could use than bute? And they had assured me twice that the dosage we were giving him alongside the peptazole itself and the management would have been enough to make sure that there was no issues. And that wasn't the case in the end. Our third scope showed that the grade 2 ulcers hadn't healed, and there was a slight bit of bleeding in his stomach lining again. So I think it's another reminder in one video that always trust your gut, because these things, you will know your horse. And if you're questioning something, even if the vets are telling you, hey, no, this should be okay, just maybe get a second opinion or double check things like that. I wasn't particularly happy giving him bute. The vet, who is the professional, had said, yeah, like it's fine, give bute, but it clearly wasn't. So that third scope did not give us the results we'd hoped for. So we were now on the 4th month of peptazole treatment, still 1 full syringe a day, 2 sucralfate twice a day, morning and evening feeds. We still had the acids, and we were really hopeful that now we had turnout again, we had no bute, things were going to look good. So we decided to give him a full month off, into a field, don't even think about him, just medication, and that's it, leave him be to be a horse. And it worked, everything worked. We had our last scope mid-April, and he was fully clear. The vets were astounded by the results once again and said his stomach doesn't even have scar tissue. His stomach looks like a healthy, pink, fleshy tummy of a horse that's never had ulcers. Never mind bleeding grade 4 craters in his stomach. So all in all, it was miraculous. And I fully believe that sticking to the plan 100% and being so diligent is the reason that we had the success that we did. From making sure he had ad-lib hay at all times, making sure that he had turnout every single day, he had his friends every single day, his workload was managed to essentially nothing, but then as we rehabbed slowly, we did things right, allowed his body to tell us what he needed and what he didn't need and when was too much. So we always made sure we never met that threshold and always kept it below that. And then now it's just looking out for the little signs that may or may not appear and being aware of how we're managing him. So it kind of leads me on to another big point that I don't really see a lot of people on social media talk about. And I think initially I thought, am I going crazy? Am I just so hyper-focused on his ulcers and hyper-focused on his treatment plan, and now that he's getting better and we're off treatment now, we're on sucralfate twice a day, we will be on sucralfate for the next 6 months and potentially for life, but that's okay because it means he's better, he's happy, he's healthy and he's thriving. So I am happy to stay on sucralfate for as long as medically necessary, and even just as a preventative measure going forwards, I have no qualms with staying on it. But it's the hypervigilance that comes with managing a horse that's had ulcers before. So now I feel that every little thing that he's doing or not doing, I kind of go, is that ulcers? Is ulcers coming back? To the point where you're so hypervigilant, you exhaust yourself thinking about it. And I'm not sure if other people do think like that, or if I am just like a grade A, like helicopter mom for Lorcán. But it's even now, you can see I'm sitting in my trusty hay feeder, and it's normally got a little grid over it, and it helps him eat a little bit slower, so it's like a slow feeder option for the field, and it's great. We've had it over a year now. It's durable. He's kicked it, moved it, wind, rain, you name it, and it's still holding strong and holding me on top, so it has to be a pretty good job. But I'm now always aware of, well, how much hay is in his feeder? Did he eat enough hay? I can see hay on the ground. Okay, so he's eating. What about the grass? Is he eating enough? Like, poo picking every day. How many droppings has he done? Are they okay? He seemed a little bit dull in the field today, and just constantly being so hyper aware that I'm almost diagnosing a problem that doesn't exist. So for anybody that's been through any medical problem, really, whether it's humans, horses, cats, dogs, but in this instance, horses, it doesn't have to just be ulcers, but let me know if you do this too. If you're constantly so hyper aware to provide the right thing for your horse and to make sure that they're happy and they're healthy and they're thriving, that you almost put yourself mad just making sure that they're okay. So that's been the hardest part, I think, is the emotional journey of, well, he never showed any symptoms, so how do I know going forwards if he's getting bad again? But now we know that mounting is the biggest one. If he starts to get a bit funny mounting, I think that's our sign something's not right. But yeah, it's just really figuring out, is he okay? Like, what do we look out for? Especially when the usual offenders aren't there. And interestingly, we had a conversation with a lady on Instagram. I'm really sorry, I've forgotten your name. But she had asked about her young horse and how she's had some concerns. And I think it's sometimes good to remind yourself of statistics of the chance of horses having ulcers. In a horse that's under 6, especially one that has been broken late, the chance of ulcers is over 85%. So over 85% of horses under the age of 6 will have ulcers at one point in that 6 years of life. So I think it made me feel a little bit better about self-blame and going, did I do something wrong? Because he was thriving and we did everything right and he was performing well and looked well and felt well. So I feel like I got it wrong. But I think grounding yourself in statistics to say, hey, even horses that are really well managed can get ulcers. Again, I'm not going to get into the whole discussion of if it's pain related, if it's stress, if it's behavioural, if it's genetics, if it's management. There's a whole umbrella of why horses can get ulcers. I'm not a vet. I am not an expert. I'm not going to pretend to be. So kind of removing the umbrella of causation of ulcers from this conversation, as every horse is unique and every horse will have its own, whether it be stress or pain, for example. You will be the only one that knows how to manage those conditions with your vet for your horse's case. So this is not going to be a video to tell you how to cure ulcers or how to prevent ulcers entirely, because every horse is individual and this only really applies to Lorcán. So some of it might help you, some of it might not. You might just think I'm the crazy lady talking about ulcers on a hay feeder, and that's also okay. But all of this to say, we now have dreams again. We had the ulcer-free scope, the clear scope in April. We're now mid-May, so we've had 5 or 6 weeks back in the saddle, rehabbing, slowly bringing him out hacking again. He's now starting to get a little bit of structure into his routine. We're now back up to 4 ridden sessions a week. 2 of those are gentle 20-minute hacks. We're now bringing a little bit of schooling back into it. So we're just asking for a slight contact, acceptance, a little bit of suppleness and rhythm and forwardness, and just asking for those things that would be expected in a horse that is now going back into training. So from here, we are looking forward to getting back into grassroots eventing. And our goal is really maybe come August, September time to get him out to an unaffiliated low-level event, just to see how he gets on, expose him to the environment. He's never really been at a competition environment before. See how he handles the dressage, the show jumping and the cross country all in one day. And between now and August, September, it gives us enough time to get him fit, get him rehabbed, not push him too hard. And alongside our vets, our amazing team of physios, chiropractors, dentists, saddle fitters, you name it, we will make sure that Lorcán is happy, healthy and thriving throughout this part of his journey. So I would love to know if any of you guys have had a similar journey to us, and I'd love to hear all of your stories with ulcers and your experiences. As I said, I feel like I have to caveat this because there's a lot of madness out there in the world where people can very quickly go down the have you tried this or have you tried that, or it must be pain related, it must be stress and you've done something wrong. So before we go attacking each other, we will not be tolerating any horrible comments to any other people that comment on these YouTube videos. It's just an experience and a conversation to help other people maybe going through ulcers, and we can all only learn as we go. So all we ask in this little part of the internet is just be nice to everybody. I'm going to finish this with just don't be a dick. Be nice to everyone, and I really hope you're going to follow along for our journey into some more positive news with the eventing, the highs, the lows, the getting things right, getting things wrong. Young horses are never linear, so we will have lots to talk about, lots to show, and this is our very first YouTube video, so I hope it's been okay. I hope you have all enjoyed this little hay feeder chat, and here's to some more. We'll say goodbye.